Admiral Kethrin stood tall on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Wrath. His green scales shimmered under the cold light of the command center. Behind him, through the massive window, he could see his fleet stretching across the darkness of space. 4,000 warships, the largest armada the Galactic Concord had ever assembled. He felt pride swelling in his chest. This was his moment. His name would be remembered forever in Velthri history. "Admiral," said his second-in-command, a younger Velthri named Torek, "we will arrive at the Sol system in less than 1 hour. All ships report ready for combat." Kethrin nodded slowly. He had waited years for this day. The humans had been a problem for too long. They had refused to join the Galactic Concord. They had rejected every offer of peaceful surrender. They had even dared to insult the Velthri ambassadors by sending them home empty-handed. Now they would pay for their arrogance. "Tell me again about their defenses," Kethrin said. He already knew the answer, but he enjoyed hearing it. Torek pulled up the data on the holographic display. The humans have approximately 300 warships. Most of them are small. Their technology is at least 2 centuries behind ours. They have some orbital stations around their home planet, but nothing that can stop a fleet of this size. And their weapons. Primitive. They use kinetic projectiles and basic missiles. Their shields are weak. Their armor is thin. Torek allowed himself a small laugh. "Admiral, this will not be a war. It will be a cleanup operation." Kethrin turned to look at his fleet again. Each ship was a masterpiece of Velthri engineering. Plasma cannons that could melt through any metal. Quantum torpedoes that could destroy a small moon. Shields that could withstand the heat of a star. The humans had nothing that could match this power. The Galactic Concord had conquered hundreds of species over thousands of years. Some had fought hard. Some had surrendered quickly, but all of them had fallen in the end. The Velthri were the masters of the galaxy, and they did not lose wars. "The humans are young," Kethrin said quietly. "They have only been traveling through space for 500 years. They do not understand how the galaxy works. They think they can stand alone against the Concord." "They are fools," Torek agreed. "Yes, but after today, they will be dead fools." The bridge crew laughed at the Admiral's joke. The mood was light, almost festive. They were going to crush a primitive species and add another world to the Concord's empire. It was routine work for warriors of their caliber in a small room at the back of the ship. The Concord's official historian was already writing the first chapter of the invasion. He described the glorious fleet, the brave admiral, and the foolish humans who had dared to resist. He wrote about how the Velthri had given the humans many chances to surrender peacefully. He wrote about how the humans had been too proud and too stupid to accept. The history was being written before the battle even started. That was how confident they were. What the historian did not know, what Admiral Kethrin did not know, what none of the 4,000 ships full of Velthri warriors knew, was that they were making a terrible mistake. They had studied the humans from far away. They had counted their ships and measured their weapons. They had looked at the numbers and concluded that humanity was weak. But they had not truly understood what they were dealing with. Humans were different from other species. The Concord had conquered. They came from a harsh world where survival was never guaranteed. Their history was written in blood and fire. They had fought each other for thousands of years before they ever reached the stars. War was not something new to them. War was something they had perfected long ago. And when humans finally stopped fighting each other, they had turned all of that violent knowledge outward. They had asked themselves a simple question. What if someone comes to destroy us? What if a stronger enemy appears from the darkness of space? They had spent 500 years preparing the answer. The 300 ships that the Velthri had detected were real, but they were not humanity's true defense. They were a mask, a lie designed to make enemies feel confident. Behind that lie waited something much worse, hidden in the asteroid belt, buried under the surface of moons. Floating silent in the darkness between planets, humanity had built its real military. Weapons that the galaxy had never seen. Ships that could hide from any sensor. Bombs that could tear holes in the fabric of space itself. The humans had not been ignoring the Concorde's threats. They had been watching, waiting, and preparing. They knew this day would come. They had known it for centuries. Admiral Kethrin looked at his mighty fleet and saw victory. He saw glory and conquest. He saw the end of human resistance. He did not see the trap he was walking into. Begin the countdown, he ordered. In 1 hour, we will enter the Sol system. In 2 hours, we will be in orbit around Earth. And by tomorrow, the human race will be nothing but a memory. His crew cheered. The fleet moved forward through the void of space, racing toward their destination. They believed they were going to war. They were wrong. They were going to their deaths. And by the time they understood this, it would be far too late to run. Far away, on a small blue planet called Earth, the humans were watching. They saw the fleet coming. They counted every ship, and they felt no fear. They were ready. They had always been ready. Captain Alina Vasquez stood in the center of the Combat Information Center aboard the UE in Thermopylae. Dozens of screens surrounded her, each one showing different information. Maps of the solar system, positions of enemy ships, status reports from every human vessel in the fleet. She was 43 years old. She had spent her entire adult life training for this moment. And now that it was here, she felt completely calm. "Captain," said Lieutenant Commander Park, a young officer sitting at the sensor station. "The Valkyrie fleet has exited hyperspace near Neptune. Confirmed count is 4,012 vessels." Skez nodded. The number was exactly what their intelligence had predicted. The aliens were not subtle. They wanted humanity to see their overwhelming force and feel terror. Instead, Alina felt something close to relief. The waiting was finally over. "Send the information to Watchdog," she ordered. "I want firing solutions on every single ship within the next 10 minutes. "Already working on it, Captain. The network is processing now." Watchdog was humanity's greatest secret weapon. It was not a single machine, but a vast network of artificial intelligences spread across the entire solar system. Every human ship, every defense station, every hidden weapon platform was connected to it. Watchdog could think faster than any living mind. It could coordinate millions of actions in a single second. And it had been designed for one purpose only: to fight and win a war against a superior enemy. Vasquez looked at the main display. The 300 human ships were forming a defensive line near Earth's moon, exactly as planned. To any outside observer, it would look like a desperate last stand. A tiny force trying to protect their home against an unstoppable invasion. That was exactly what they wanted the Valkyrie to think. "Status on the Ghost Fleet?" she asked. Park checked his screens. "All 2,000 ships are in position and running silent. The enemy cannot detect them. Singularity mines, armed and ready. 700 units spread across the invasion corridor. Interdiction fields, standing by. On your order, we can lock down the entire system. No hyperspace jumps in or out." Vasquez allowed herself a small smile. The trap was set. All they needed now was for the enemy to walk into it in another part of the solar system. Aboard a space station called Prometheus, a group of alien diplomats were watching the same events unfold. They were not Valkyrie. They came from other species within the Galactic Concorde, species that had been conquered long ago and now served their masters. The humans had invited them here to observe the battle. Ambassador Deriz was the oldest among them. She was small and gray, with large eyes that had seen many wars. She did not understand why the humans had asked them to come. Did they want witnesses to their own destruction? Were they hoping for mercy at the last moment? "The human fleet is pathetically small," said one of the other diplomats. "They cannot possibly win this fight." Sari said nothing. She was watching the humans on the station around her. They did not look afraid. They did not look desperate. They moved with quiet purpose, speaking in calm voices, checking their equipment with practiced hands. Something felt wrong. These were not the actions of people about to die. Back on the Thermopylae, Captain Vasquez received communication from Earth. The face of Admiral Chen appeared on her screen. He was an old man with white hair and tired eyes, but his voice was strong and clear. Captain Vasquez, the enemy fleet is approaching Mars orbit. They will reach the engagement zone in approximately 40 minutes. We are ready, Admiral. I know you are. Chen paused for a moment. Alina, I want you to understand something. What happens today will change everything. Not just for us, but for the entire galaxy. Every species out there is watching. They need to see what happens when someone attacks humanity. I understand, sir. We're not trying to win a battle today. We are trying to prevent all future battles. We need to show them that attacking us is not just difficult. It is impossible. It is suicide. Dean said. The Admiral's eyes hardened. No mercy. No half measures. We destroy them completely, and we make sure everyone sees it. Vasquez nodded. It will be done. The communication ended. Vasquez turned back to her crew. Every face was focused, determined, ready. These men and women had trained their entire lives for this moment. Their parents had trained before them. Their grandparents had helped build the weapons they would use today. 500 years of preparation had led to this single hour. All hands, Vasquez announced over the ship's communication system. This is the captain. The enemy is approaching. In less than 1 hour, we will engage the largest hostile fleet in galactic history. Our ancestors built our weapons. Our parents perfected our strategies. Now it falls to us to use them. She paused, letting her words sink in. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity is capable of. Today, we teach them a lesson they will never forget. Today, we make them understand that Earth is not a target. It is a graveyard for anyone foolish enough to attack us. The crew responded with silence. They did not need to cheer or shout. Their confidence was absolute. Their purpose was clear. Captain Vasquez looked at the approaching enemy fleet on her display. 4,000 ships filled with warriors who believed they were coming to conquer. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Begin final preparations, she ordered. The moment they cross the line, we show them what war really looks like. The Valkyrie Armada crossed the orbit of Mars in perfect formation. Their ships moved like a great wave of metal and fire, unstoppable and proud. Admiral Catherine stood at the center of his bridge, watching the small blue dot of Earth grow larger on his display. Victory was close. He could almost taste it. Admiral, his sensor officer called out. The human fleet is holding position near their moon. They are not moving to intercept us. Of course they are not moving, Catherine said with a laugh. They know they cannot win. They are probably hoping we will accept their surrender. Should we offer them terms? No, we gave them chances before. They refused. Now they will die. The Admiral waved his hand dismissively. Continued the advance. I want to be in weapons range within the hour. The fleet pushed forward. Behind them, the darkness of space seemed empty and quiet. Ahead, the human defenders waited like lambs before wolves. Then the sensor officer spoke again, and this time his voice was different. There was confusion in it, and something else, fear. Admiral, I am detecting strange readings, gravitational anomalies throughout the system. Catherine frowned. Explain. There are hundreds of distortions in space. They appeared suddenly, all at once. They are everywhere. It's asteroid interference, solar radiation. It is nothing, sir. The anomalies are moving. They are not natural. They are. The officer never finished his sentence. The first singularity mine detonated directly in front of the Valkyrie Vanguard. It was a weapon that the galaxy had never seen before. Humans had learned to create tiny black holes, objects so dense that nothing could escape their gravity. These artificial black holes lasted only a fraction of a second, but in that fraction of a second, they could crush anything within their reach. 17 Valkyrie ships simply ceased to exist. One moment they were there, proud warships full of soldiers and weapons. The next moment they were gone, compressed into balls of matter smaller than a fist before vanishing completely. Admiral Catherine stared at his tactical display in disbelief. 17 ships destroyed instantly. No weapons fire, no warning. They had simply been erased. What happened? He demanded. What is happening? Before anyone could answer, more detonations lit up the darkness. Dozens of singularity mines activated across the fleet, each one swallowing ships whole. The beautiful formation of the Armada began to break apart as captains tried to avoid the invisible death around them, and then space itself seemed to come alive. They rose from the darkness like ghosts. 2,000 human warships that had been floating silent and cold, invisible to every sensor, waiting for this exact moment. They emerged from behind asteroids, from within the rings of Saturn, from positions scattered throughout the entire solar system. The ghost fleet had revealed itself. Catherine felt his blood turn cold. This was not possible. The humans were supposed to have only 300 ships. His intelligence had confirmed it. They had studied the human military for years. Where had these ships come from? Admiral Torek shouted. We are surrounded. They are attacking from all directions. The first wave of human weapons fire reached the Valkyrie fleet like a storm of light and metal. Railgun rounds, accelerated to incredible speeds, punched through Valkyrie shields as if they were paper. Ships that had never known defeat suddenly found themselves torn apart by weapons they could not understand. Catherine watched his fleet die. Return fire. He screamed. All ships return fire. But the Valkyrie weapons were designed for a different kind of war. Their plasma cannons needed time to charge. Their torpedoes needed to lock onto targets. The human attacks came too fast, from too many directions. By the time a Valkyrie ship was ready to shoot back, it was already dying. The Watchdog network coordinated every human vessel with perfect precision. It saw the entire battlefield at once. It predicted what the Valkyrie would do before they did it. When a Valkyrie captain tried to turn his ship, the human weapons were already aimed at where he was going to be. When a Valkyrie squadron tried to concentrate their fire, human ships moved aside before the shots arrived. It was not a battle. It was an execution. On Station Prometheus, Ambassador Thyres watched in horror. Her large eyes were fixed on the tactical display, which showed the Valkyrie fleet shrinking with every passing minute. Red dots disappeared by the dozen, then by the 100. This is impossible, whispered one of the other diplomats. They are being slaughtered. Thyres could not speak. She had seen wars before. She had watched fleets clash and planets burn. But she had never seen anything like this. The humans were not fighting to win. They were fighting to destroy. Completely. Absolutely. There was no mercy in their attacks. No hesitation. No negotiation. Just death. Admiral Catherine stood on his burning bridge as his empire crumbled around him. His flagship was still alive, but barely. Half of his fleet was already gone, transformed into debris and corpses floating through the void. He finally understood the truth. The humans had not been weak. They had not been unprepared. They had wanted the Valkyrie to feel confident. They had wanted them to come. The entire invasion had been a trap, and Catherine had walked his entire fleet directly into it. Admiral Torek said, his voice shaking. What do we do? Catherine had no answer. For the first time in his life, the great admiral had no answer at all. The battle lasted less than 1 hour. But for Admiral Catherine, it felt like an eternity of horror. The human weapons were were unlike anything the Valkyrie had ever faced. Railgun rounds traveled so fast that there was no time to dodge them. Gamma ray cannons fired invisible beams that killed crews without even damaging ships. Autonomous torpedoes hunted in packs. Hundreds of small weapons working together like a single mind, finding weak points in armor and shields. And behind it all, the Watchdog Network watched everything. Every Valkyrie ship was tracked. Every movement was predicted. Every attempt to fight back was countered before it could succeed. The humans were not fighting like individuals. They were fighting like a single organism, a vast machine of war with thousands of parts, all working in perfect harmony. Catherine tried to rally his captains, form defensive clusters, concentrate fire on single targets. We can still. His words meant nothing. Communications were breaking down as ship after ship was destroyed. The captains who survived were too busy dying to listen to orders. 11 minutes after the battle began, 2,000 Valkyrie ships had been destroyed. The debris field stretched across millions of kilometers, a graveyard of metal and bodies drifting through the cold darkness of space. The surviving ships tried to run. Some turned toward the outer planets, hoping to escape into deep space. Others tried to activate their hyperspace drives to jump away from this nightmare and warned the Concorde of what they had found. But there was no escape. The humans had prepared for this too. Across the solar system, interdiction fields activated. These were massive machines that created distortions in space, making hyperspace travel impossible. The Valkyrie ships could not jump. They could not flee. They were trapped in a cage of twisted space, and the humans were inside with them. "No," Catherine whispered as he watched the interdiction readings on his display. "No, this cannot be happening." But it was happening. Ship after ship fell silent on his tactical display. Red dots vanished into nothing. The greatest fleet in galactic history was being erased. Captain Vasquez watched the battle from the bridge of the Thermopylae. Her face showed no emotion as enemy ships died by the thousand. She felt no joy in this slaughter. She felt no pride. This was simply work that needed to be done. "Status report," she said calmly. 60% of enemy fleet destroyed. Lieutenant Commander Park replied. "We have lost 4 ships. 3 to friendly fire, 1 to a lucky torpedo hit." 4 ships against 4,000. The numbers were almost impossible to believe. "Continue the operation. No ship escapes. No survivors flee to warn the Concorde." "Understood, Captain." The human fleet moved through the chaos with mechanical precision. They did not fight for glory or honor. They did not seek personal victories or dramatic confrontations. They simply identified targets and destroyed them, one after another, like workers completing a task. Back on the Dominion's Wrath, Admiral Catherine watched his bridge crew die around him. A railgun round had torn through the hull, and half his officers were either dead or screaming in pain. Emergency lights cast everything in a bloody red glow. Torque crawled toward him, green blood streaming from a wound on his head. "Admiral, we need to surrender. We need to send a signal." "They will not accept surrender," Catherine said quietly. He understood now. He understood everything. They do not want prisoners. They do not want victory. They want to send a message. A message to who? To everyone. Catherine looked at the display one final time. Fewer than 500 Valkyrie ships remained, and that number was dropping fast. They want the galaxy to see what happens when you attack humanity. They want us to be an example. Admiral closed his eyes. He thought about his home world, about his family, about all the glorious plans he had made for the future. He had imagined himself returning as a hero, celebrated for conquering the stubborn humans. Instead, he would be remembered as the fool who led his people into a trap. 20-3 minutes after the battle began, 3,000 Valkyrie ships had been destroyed at 35 minutes. The number rose to 3,500 at 41 minutes. A concentrated burst of human weapons fire struck the Dominion's Wrath, The flagship shields, already weakened by earlier damage, collapsed instantly. The plasma reactors lost containment. The mighty warship broke apart in a silent explosion of light and debris. Admiral Catherine died without ever giving the order to surrender. At 47 minutes, the last Valkyrie warship was destroyed. Silence fell over the solar system. Where 4,000 ships had once sailed proudly toward conquest, there was now only a vast field of wreckage. Bodies floated among the debris. Broken weapons drifted aimlessly. The greatest armada in galactic history had become nothing but garbage. Captain Vasquez looked at her display and saw no more red dots. The battle was over. All enemy vessels destroyed. Park confirmed. Mission accomplished. Vasquez nodded slowly. Begin search and rescue operations. Find any escape pods. Recover any survivors. Park looked surprised. Survivors, Captain? We are not monsters, Lieutenant. We kill those who attack us, but we do not leave the defeated to die in the void. Find them. Save them. Let them live to tell others what happened here. The human fleet spread out across the battlefield, searching for life among the dead. They found fewer than 10,000 survivors out of an invasion force of over 2 million. These survivors were collected, treated for their injuries, and held as prisoners. They would eventually be released. The humans wanted them to go home. They wanted them to tell everyone what they had seen. The war had lasted less than an hour, and in that hour, humanity had changed the galaxy forever. On Station Prometheus, the diplomatic observers sat in complete silence. No one moved. No one spoke. The tactical display in front of them showed nothing but a vast field of debris where the Valkyrie fleet had been. 4,000 warships, the largest invasion force in galactic history, destroyed in less than 1 hour. Ambassador Thyres felt her old heart beating too fast. In her long life, she had seen many terrible things. She had watched her own species fall to the Concord centuries ago. She had witnessed dozens of other conquests since then. She had learned to accept that the strong always dominated the weak, but she had never seen anything like this. The humans had not just defended themselves. They had erased an entire military force with a cold, mechanical efficiency. There had been no negotiation, no demands for surrender, no opportunity for retreat. Just death delivered at a speed and scale that defied belief. "We need to leave," one of the younger diplomats whispered. "We need to get away from these creatures. They invited us here," another replied, his voice shaking. "They wanted us to see this." "Why? What do they want from us?" Thyres understood. She understood perfectly. "They want us to tell others," she said, quietly. "They want the entire galaxy to know what happened here. We are not prisoners. We are messengers." Before anyone could respond, a new image appeared on the display. A human woman in a military uniform. She had dark hair and calm eyes, and her face showed no emotion at all. She began to speak. "This message is addressed to the Galactic Concord and all member species." Her voice was clear and steady. She spoke without anger or pride. She spoke like someone stating simple facts. What you have witnessed today was not an act of aggression. It was a response to an unprovoked invasion of human space. The Valkyrie Armada entered our system with hostile intent. They came to conquer our world and destroy our people. They were stopped. The woman paused, letting her words sink in across the galaxy. This message was being broadcast on every frequency, transmitted to every ship and station and planet that could receive it. Humanity has always desired peace. We asked only to be left alone. We wanted to trade with other species, to share knowledge, to grow alongside our galactic neighbors. The Concord refused. The Concord sent warships instead of ambassadors. The Concord chose violence. Her eyes seemed to harden slightly. "We did not choose this fight, but we finished it on thousands of worlds across the galaxy. Beings of every shape and size watched this message. Many had never seen a human before. They had only heard stories about the primitive species that had dared to refuse the Concord's rule. Now they saw something very different. They saw a species that had destroyed 4,000 warships in less than an hour. Let this serve as a permanent record, the human woman continued. Humanity will never be conquered. We will never be enslaved. We will never be exterminated. Any fleet that enters our space with hostile intent will receive the same welcome that the Velthiri received today. She leaned forward slightly, and her voice grew softer, almost sad. We take no joy in this destruction. We mourn the lives that were lost today, even the lives of our enemies. But we will not apologize for defending ourselves. We will not apologize for surviving. The message was almost finished now. Across the galaxy, leaders and generals and common citizens watched with wide eyes. Everything they had believed about the balance of power was crumbling. The Concord has a choice to make now. You can continue to see humanity as a threat, as a species to be conquered and controlled. If you choose this path, then more fleets will come to our space, and more fleets will be destroyed. We are patient. We have been preparing for this conflict for 500 years. We can continue for 500 more. Or, she said, and her voice warmed slightly, you can choose a different path. You can recognize humanity as an equal. You can send ambassadors instead of warships. You can trade with us, learn from us, and grow with us. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We simply want to exist in it. Straightened, her gaze sweeping across the cameras as if meeting the eyes of every being watching. The next move belongs to you. Choose wisely. The transmission ended. On Station Prometheus, Ambassador Thyres finally found the strength to stand. Her legs were weak, but her mind was sharp. She looked at the other diplomats, seeing her own shock reflected in their faces. What are they? One of them asked. How can any species be so powerful? Thyres thought about the question for a long moment. She thought about what she knew of human history. The little fragments that had filtered through Concord intelligence reports. A species that had survived ice ages and plagues. A species that had fought countless wars against itself. A species that had crawled out of the mud and reached the stars through nothing but determination and cleverness. They are survivors, she finally answered. That is what they have always been. They come from a world that tried to kill them every day, and they refused to die. When they stopped fighting their planet, they started fighting each other. And when they stopped fighting each other, they looked up at the stars and asked themselves one question. What question? What if something out there wants to kill us too? Thyres turned to look at the debris field still displayed on the screen. And then they spent 500 years making sure the answer would always be the same. Anyone who tries to destroy humanity will be destroyed first. The younger diplomat shook his head in disbelief. Then there will be war. The Concord cannot allow this insult to stand. They will send more fleets. Perhaps, Thyres said. Or perhaps the Concord will finally learn what every human enemy has learned throughout their history. What is that? The old ambassador smiled, though there was no happiness in it. That some species are not meant to be conquered. Some species bite back so hard that the predators learn to leave them alone. The humans are such a species. She turned away from the display, and the galaxy has just learned this lesson in the most painful way possible. Outside the station, human rescue ships continued their work, pulling survivors from the wreckage. They would be healed. They would be sent home. And they would carry the message that Ambassador Thyres and her colleagues would also carry. Humanity was not prey. Humanity had never been prey. And any species foolish enough to forget this lesson would be reminded of it with fire and steel and absolute, merciless efficiency. The war was over. The message was sent, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again.